very honored to be invited by the Fukuoka Museum to exhibit my work in its important 10-year anniversary. I would especially like to thank Mr. Furuoka for his continued interest in my work and Ms. Lisa Horikawa for all her assistance. I work in a variety of mediums and formats, including detailed miniature paintings, drawings, animation, installation, video, and collaboration with other artists. In the past 20 years, I have examined the provenance and canon of Indo-Persian miniature painting while playing with its context, inserting new dialogue, often subversive in nature. Miniature painting, for a lack of a better term, unfortunately, it's a very simplistic way of describing like a very diverse genre which spread from Eastern Europe into East Asia, but my focus really was India, Northern India, and it's in Persian influence in Northern India. Anyway, it comes out of book illustration, illuminated manuscripts, and has a relationship, very obvious relationship with text. So it accompanies written text, though it not necessarily illustrates it. So that relationship is again born out of the book and the reading of the book. So thus the scale plays a part, and also the style evolved over a period of time, again engages with this sense of refinement. So it comes out of minaturi, the word, which means in Persian refinement. So I find that though it may be small in scale, but it is nonetheless very heroic in scale. So it has a lot of depth and has a lot of crossover of politics and memoirs and is a window for a certain period of history also.
The same could be said about my use of the hair silhouette as seen in this animation spin. It sheds its reference to gopis, the female lovers of Krishna as portrayed in Indian miniatures, to gender, and when isolated and multiplied, turns into bats, floating helmets, or even abstract whimsical signs. By isolating the gopi character, I emphasized its potential to cultivate new associations. The split from its feminine origin is indicative of my interest in exploring the space of sexuality and eroticism within a certain overt and controlled system of representation.
Observation in particular, I think it's a very pertinent point that I try to insert in the video work, but not just in that work in general over the course of time, over the variety of works. So I would like to share just one work which actually was not here, but when I first created the animation, it was presented in opposite to the painting, but both the works mirrored each other and were part of a very thin corridor type of a space. So once you entered that space, you were forced to stay inside till you actually observed the entire piece, and because other people could not see what was happening, it created a height, so everybody had to be stuck into that space. So it was one way of forcing people to respect or to face this confrontation, and I titled that particular work Intimacy. But in general, it's always interesting for me to see how people respond. People usually have less patience, so this was a way to force them to come to terms with that. No, actually, quite the contrary. I've always been very blessed with lots of support from family and grandparents and friends and colleagues, and I feel very fortunate. I think my exploration obviously is informed by my lived experience and my interest in works, especially like early on artists like Eva Hesse's work, like engagement with the feminist expression, especially in sculptural works, and in feminist sort of critique like Kristeva and Helen Susu. So I have had like a very particular engagement, critically and in terms of looking at other women artists, well, in the very early stages of my development, like when I was in my early 20s. So that is there, as is my exploration of miniature painting. So I see that when I develop work, all of that I access. But for this particular banner at MoMA, I was more interested in how a particular use of aesthetic or its recording historically of that aesthetic, especially the Indian aesthetic, as being excessive or detailed or too elaborate, especially by the European scholars of the 19th century. And there's a book called Much Maligned Monsters by Partha Mitter, who I'm referring. So it's a very distant, objective relationship. It's not coming from a personal space, but an observation of how certain aesthetics have existed critically in that critical space, which I basically use for MoMA.